Good morning. The hour of convening has arrived, and the Senate will now come to order. I'd ask that all unauthorized persons exit the chamber. Chair recognizes our good friend, the senator from the 53rd.
Mr. President, another glorious day at the State Senate. Under your leadership, the men and women of this great body is working hard for the people of Georgia. A little moment in history: on this very date, 1958, an unarmed hydrogen bomb is jettisoned from a B-47 bomber flying over the Tybee Roads, which is the shipping lanes off Tybee Islands, in the Wassaw Sound, waters off the shore of Tybee Islands. After a mid-air collision, the bomb is still missing, and no one knows where it is. But rumor has it that the senator from the 1st has it in his garage covered with Christmas ornaments. Today's also the senators from the 3rd District's favorite day. It's National Chocolate Fondue Day. And nobody's paying attention, but the journal's been read and found to be correct, Mr. President.
I continue to be impressed with your reading list. Is there objection to dispensing with the reading of the journal? The chair hears none, and the reading of the journal is dispensed with. Is there objection to confirmation of the journal? The chair hears none, and the journal is confirmed. All senators who have bills or resolutions to introduce, please bring them to the Secretary's desk at this time. Mr. Secretary, first reading of bills and resolutions, please.
Senate Bill 359 by Senator Huffstetler of the 52nd and others, a bill to be titled an act to amend Title 33 of Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to insurance so as to provide for certain consumer protections against surprise billing.
Health and Human Services.
Senate Bill 360 by Senator James of the 35th and others, a bill to be titled an act to amend Chapter 24 of Title 33 of Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to insurance generally so as to provide that diagnostic examinations for
Insurance
breast cancer.
and Labor.
Senate Bill 361 by Senator Jackson of the 2nd and others, a bill to be titled an act to amend Chapter 7 of Title 31 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to regulation and construction of hospitals and other health care facilities so as to require hospitals
Health and Human Services.
Senate Bill 362 by Senator Wilkinson of the 50th and others, a bill to be titled an act to amend Chapter 3 of Title 4 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to livestock running at large or straying so as to change the fees.
Agriculture.
Senate Bill 363 by Senator Unterman of the 45th and others, a bill to be titled an act to amend Code Section 48.727 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to computation of taxable net income so as to provide an exemption for military retirement. Senate Bill 364 by Senator Gooch of the 51st and others, a bill to be titled an act to amend Title 46 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to public utilities and public transportation.
Regulated Industries.
Senate Bill 365 by Senator Karen Shack of the 48th and others, a bill to be titled an act to amend Article 4, Chapter 11 of Title 16 and Article 2 of Chapter 3 of Title 35 of the Official Code of Georgia.
Judiciary.
Senate Bill 366 by Senator Karen Shack, the 48th, and others, a bill to be titled an act to amend Part 5 of Article 4, Chapter 11 of Title 16 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to Brady Law regulations so as to require universal
Judiciary.
Senate Bill 367 by Senator Martin of the 9th and others, a bill to be titled an act to amend Part 12 of Article 6 of Chapter 2 of Title 20 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to effectiveness of educational programs so as to reduce the number
Education.
That please order, Mr. President.
All right, the Secretary will now read reports of standing committees, please.
Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Natural Resources and the Environment has had in consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. Senate Bill 123 do pass by substitute. Senate Bill 319 do pass. Respectfully submitted by Senator Harper of the 7th District Chair. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Agriculture and Consumer Affairs has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. House Bill 545 do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted by Senator Wilkinson of the 50th District Chair. Mr. President, pursuant to Senate Rule 2.1.6, I hereby give notice that I will introduce a minority report to be read along with the majority report of House Bill 545. Respectfully submitted by Senator Rahman, District 5, Senator Sims, District 12, and Senator Karen Shack, District 48. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Regulated Industries and Utilities has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. Senate Bill 298 do pass by substitute. Senate Bill 310 do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted by Senator Calzert of the 46th District Chair. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on SLOGO has under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. House Bill 706, do pass. House Bill 753, do pass. House Bill 817, do pass. House Bill 831, do pass. Respectfully submitted by Senator Anderson of the 24th District, Chair. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Veterans, Military, and Homeland Security has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. Senate Bill 268, do pass. Respectfully submitted by Senator Thompson of the 14th District, Chair. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Secretary will now read bills and resolutions for the second time. We have one more standing committee report to read. Ms. Secretary, please proceed.
Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Insurance and Labor has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. Senate Bill 303, do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted by Senator Jones, the 25th District Chair. That completes the order, Mr. President.
All right, now please read the bills and resolutions for the second time, Ms. Secretary.
Senate Bill 302 by Senator Albers of the 56th and others, Tax Credit Return on Investment Act of 2020, Independent Economic Analyses, Provide and Act. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. It is now time for our morning roll call. Are there any motions to excuse? The chair recognizes the senator from Forsyth County.
Good morning, Mr. President. I ask for unanimous consent to excuse the senator from the 28th for business inside the Capitol.
Without objection, the senator from the 28th is excused. The chair recognizes the senator from the 19th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the senator excuse the senator from the 17th.
Without objection, the senator from the 17th is excused. The chair recognizes the senator from the 18th.
Good morning, Mr. President. I'd ask unanimous consent to excuse the senator from the 20th.
Without objection, the senator from the 20th is excused. Chair recognizes the senator from the 33rd.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like for unanimous consent to excuse the senator from the 34th and 35th for business outside the Capitol.
Without objection, the senators from the 34th and 35th are excused. Any additional motions to excuse? Chair sees none. The secretary will call the roll. The senators signify your presence by voting the yea switch. The secretary will unlock the machine. All right, it is now time for our morning devotional. And I'd like to ask that all senators please take your seats and cease all audible conversations. I'd like to ask the doorkeepers to secure the chamber at this time. I'd like to recognize the senator from the 14th to lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance and to introduce our chaplain of the day.
Thank you, Mr. President. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now the Georgia flag. I pledge allegiance to the Georgia flag and to the principles for which it stands, wisdom, justice, and moderation. Good morning, senators and colleagues. It truly is a pleasure to present to you today the pastor of the day. Dr. Kyle Walker is a native of Americus, Georgia. He moved to Columbus, Mississippi as a freshman in high school and then went on to attend the University of Alabama, graduating with a degree in organizational leadership. From there, he moved to Southwest Theological Seminary in Fort Worth, Texas, where he earned his Master of Divinity and his PhD. In March of 2014, Kyle began his tenure as Dean of Students at Southwestern and then took on role of Vice President for Student Services. Last year, First Baptist Cartersville called him to become their senior pastor. Impressive for a young 30-year-old, right? Maybe. But one of his greatest accomplishments, as many of us in this, is landing his spouse, Lauren. Clearly, he married way over his head when he married Lauren. I can only wish that she was with us today, but she's tending to the family. In addition to Lauren, he has 3 beautiful children that we became very fond of during their time of transition when they stayed with us. Taylor Grace, Libby Ann, and Clay Kyle. There's a quote from the late Robert Wooden, who was an American basketball player and head of UCLA. The quote is, "Be more concerned with your character than your reputation, because your character is what you really are, while your reputation is merely what others think of you." The true test of a man's character is what he does when no one is watching. If you don't have time to do it right, when will you have time to do it over again? And finally, talent is God-given. Be humble. Fame is man-given. Be grateful. Conceit is self-given. Be careful. It's a great privilege today that we are hosting Dr. Kyle Walker and ask him to step up and bring our devotion. Much like David, he is a man after God's own heart.
Well, members of the Senate and guests, good morning to you all today, and thank you for the privilege of being present here with you today. And to you, Senator Thompson, thank you as well, not only for being the friend that you are, but also, as you mentioned, sharing your address with us, allowing us to have a home in our transition from Texas to Georgia, for being the blessing to my family that you have been. God's law is summed up in just 2 commands: to love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. And then the second is to love oneself, one's neighbor, as oneself. Of course, though, as you know, not a single human being on the planet has perfectly kept just these 2 laws. And therefore, this is exactly why God's plan of salvation culminated in the sending of His one and only Son, Jesus Christ, who was God in the flesh. Living, He perfectly fulfilled the law. Dying, He died in place for those who had broken the law. And rising again, He offered justification for all those who would trust Him by faith, though they had broken the law. Jesus, you can say, is the ultimate shepherd, the ultimate lawmaker, the ultimate lawkeeper, the ultimate judge and justifier. Jesus, of course, to sum it up, is the King of Kings. Before Jesus returns and establishes His kingdom, we have the privilege, have been given the privilege by Him as those who've been made in His image, to steward the functions that He's given us in the image of God, to function in, you might say, God-like ways. Leading, shepherding, lawmaking, judging, correcting, loving, caring, guiding, helping. God's plan for His people that He made has always included raising up leaders to function on His behalf for the good of the people. David, even as Senator Thompson mentioned, was one such man. King David, you may have heard some of his story, was called a man after God's own heart. What does that mean? It means simply that David was a man who ultimately wanted what God wanted. His deepest heart-level ambitions aligned with God's. Psalm 78 is one of the Psalms here that I want to point out some things that speak of David, 2 things specifically that allowed him, 2 elements that allowed him to carry out the stewardship God had given him successfully. I just want to read the last few verses of Psalm 78. It says, beginning in verse 70, that God chose David, His servant, and took him from the sheepfolds, from following the nursing ewes. He brought him to shepherd Jacob, His people, Israel, His inheritance. And with an upright heart He shepherded them and guided them with His skillful hand. Do you notice those two things it mentioned about David? An upright heart he had, along with skillful hands. I just want to say a couple things about both of these characteristics for us today. An upright heart, a pure heart, a heart of integrity, of course, is a heart that wanted what God wanted. A heart that served for the glory of God, for the good of the people, and not for personal gain. The Bible tells us, Jeremiah 17:9, that above all things, the human heart is wicked and deceitful. Who can understand it? In other words, the human heart is laced with greed, with conceit, and selfish ambition. And this is why the heart of Jesus' offer of salvation is a new heart, one that beats for what God wants and has the ambitions that God desires. David had such a heart. And he'd only had such a heart, he had skillful hands to do what God had called him to do. You see, when the heart of God beats in the body of a man or a woman, that man or woman's hands become gloves for the hand of God to move and operate in the world. The hands of God to point the way, the hands of God to discern right and wrong, to instruct in wisdom, to move by the mercy of God, hands that administer the justice of God, and hands that show the love of God. My prayer simply for you all today and going forward is that you too would have this heart for the glory of God and the good of all, and that He would give you the skillful hands to do the job that He's entrusted you and to steward well. Let me pray for those two things to be true of us today. Heavenly Father, as we gather today on a day that you've made, we pause to give you glory today, to recognize you, Father, and to praise you for all the good gifts that we have from your hand. Father, we praise you today for the unprecedented blessings that you've poured out on our nation. What a privilege it is to live and work and serve in this land we call America. Father, you have poured out your grace on us. And God, your word says, to whom much is given, much is required. Father, I pray that you would give us as the people that you have made. You'd give us as pastors and as lawmakers and as citizens. And in every capacity that we serve, you'd give us an upright heart, a heart that wants what you want. And Father, I pray that you would give skills to our hands, for that you would allow our hands to be gloves for your hands, to do your work your way for your glory, for the good of your people. Would your grace be evident today? Father, would your will be done today? Would your blessings be upon all those represented in this room and their families, the hurts and the pains, the burdens they bear even now, Father? Would you minister to them in a special way for their good? We pray all these things for your glory. Amen. Amen. I appreciate you, brother. That's right. Yeah.
You come up here for a second? You stand right here. Not you.
Oh, I see it right here. Oh, perfect. Perfect. There you go. Pretty cool.
You never come up here anytime?
You're in the right job.
What do you want to do now?
So my main thing is working in the film industry as an actor and a musician. My family has a big music group that's already on YouTube. We've got some tour offerings and whatnot. And I host the Christian Kids TV show, and it's been doing pretty well. So this past summer we went on tour with it, and then I just got the contract to go out again on the road this summer as well. So in June I'll be going around America. So
That's awesome. Do you know Denver's Skype? Type Studio. So she's writer actor, and she has like a little Christian kid series. Like they just do it in internal, like their acting school, but they call Life at Stipe. And someone I think it's really like value.
Yeah, it's great. I've heard so many good things about her. I take classes at John McDonald.
Oh, yeah. It's a whole new world for me. Hey, David. Are there any unanimous consents? The chair sees none. We're now going to introduce our doctor of the day, and I'd like to call on our good friend, the senator from the 32nd, to do so. Just ask him to read.
Thank you, Mr. President. Are you going to read the resolution? Before I introduce the doctor of the day, I'd like to ask the clerk to read a resolution.
Senate Resolution 653 by Senator Kirkpatrick of the 32nd and others, a resolution recognizing February 5th, 2020 as Public Health Day at the state capitol and for other purposes. Whereas the Georgia Department of Public Health is the lead agency in preventing disease, injury, and disability, promoting health and well-being, and preparing for and responding to disasters from a health perspective. And whereas the department's main programs include health promotion and disease prevention, immunization, maternal and child health, infectious disease, epidemiology, emergency preparedness and response, emergency medical services, volunteer health care, vital records, and the state public health laboratory. And now therefore be it resolved by the Senate that the members of this body recognize the efforts of the Department of Public Health and district health directors for their past, present, and future work on behalf of Georgia citizens, and recognize February 5th, 2020 as Public Health Day at the state capitol. That completes the order.
Is there objection to adoption of the resolution? The chair hears none, and the resolution is adopted. I'd like to call upon the senator from the 32nd to speak to the resolution and to introduce the doctor of the day.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today, for Public Health Day at the Capitol, the Department of Public Health district health directors have traveled from all areas of the state to come to the Capitol and share their impact on the local public health system. They will also be serving in shifts as the doctors of the day, and they are sitting in the gallery. Represented by our Public Health Commissioner, Dr. Kathleen Toomey, these men and women are on the front line of public health in Georgia. Thank you to Drs. Voggio, Taylor, Logan, Memark, Arona, Ford, Obasanjo, Kraft, Haynes, Goggins, Townsend, Grow, Ruiz, Davis, and Parks for your service to the state. Please stand. Thank you. Public health touches every person in the state and operates through a state office, 18 health districts, and a health department in every county. Please welcome my friend, Dr. Kathleen Toomey, for some remarks.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It is an absolute privilege for me to be here on this historic day, which is, I believe, the first time state leadership and district public health leadership have been together at the Capitol for Public Health Day. As Commissioner of Public Health and a former health director, nobody is more aware of the importance of the district health directors in providing health leadership in the 159 county health departments in Georgia. I am proud that we are standing here today together, for these are the doctors of the day every day in your communities. Whether it's working to improve the health of mothers and babies across Georgia, or ensuring the state is responding to a potential threat of coronavirus, public health works best when we work together as a team, a system of public health keeping all Georgians safe and healthy. What you see here today, district and state working together, reflects that commitment to ensure all Georgians are safe and healthy. On this historic day, we look forward to the opportunity to meet with many of you individually to talk about our programs. And I know I speak for myself, as well as my colleagues, that you have supported public health greatly over the years, and we thank you for your continued commitment to support public health as we move forward. And speaking for myself personally, I want to thank you all in the Senate, as well as you District Health Director colleagues, for your leadership and commitment to Georgia public health. Thank you so much.
We have some additional special guests with us today. Mr. Secretary, will you please read the resolution?
Senate Resolution 640 by Senator Jones, the 25th, and others. A resolution congratulating the John Millage Academy Trojans for winning the 2019 GISA Class 3A State Football Championship and for other purposes. Whereas the John Millage Academy Trojans have established and maintained a proud tradition of excellence with equal emphasis on character and academics, and whereas the team brought special recognition to its school by winning the 2019 GISA 3A State Football Championship against a formidable opponent, marking the team's second state title in 4 seasons. And whereas this magnificent team earned its well-deserved reputation for excellence by performing with courage and precision over months of training and competition, it is abundantly proper to call them champions. Now therefore be it resolved by the Senate that the members of this body congratulate the John Millage Academy Trojans for winning the 2019 GISA Class 3A State Football Championship and extend best wishes for continued success. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Is there objection to adoption of the resolution? The chair hears none, and the resolution is adopted. I'd like to call upon the senator from the 25th to introduce this fine group of athletes.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, members of the Senate. I had the distinct pleasure of welcoming for the second time in 4 years John Milledge Academy for winning the state football title in AAA. These young men are outstanding students and outstanding athletes, and they represent their communities well. They've played for the state title last 3 out of 4 years, winning it twice. And head coach J.T. Wall, come here, J.T., I want to tell them. Now, this right here, J.T. and I played at the University of Georgia, and he was a starting fullback then, and he literally was the strongest man on the team. He benched over 500 pounds, and I used to have to hit him on goal line all the time. And the one time I got the better of J.T., he just looked at me and said, "It won't happen again." And he was right. He was right. But J.T. was Coach of the Year. He's a good friend of mine, and at this time, JT wants to let the captain of his team, Justin Aldridge, come up here and speak. Come on, Justin.
I'd just like to say it's an honor to be here today, and thank you, Senator Jones, for having us, and thank you all for all of your hard work and effort that you put in for us.
All right, thank you.
Good job, man. Let's take a picture over here. Line up, he'll get you squared away. Here you go, Bert. What's the next? Ms. Secretary, please read the next resolution for our special guests.
Senate Resolution 682 by Senator Williams of the 39th and others, a resolution recognizing and commending the students of the Ushers New Look Leadership Academy and for other purposes. Whereas these students are a part of a 4-year program designed to prepare them for post-secondary education and careers based around 4 pillars: talent, education, career, and service. And whereas the New Look Leadership Academy includes topics such as scholarship, preparedness, budgeting, financial goal setting, entrepreneurship, credit management, and investment strategies, which prepare students to compete in a global information-based economy.
Right.
And now therefore be it resolved by the Senate that the members of this body recognize and commend the students of the Ushers New Look Leadership Academy and convey their best wishes to each of them for success and happiness in their future pursuits. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Is there objection to adoption of the resolution? The chair hears none, and the resolution is adopted. Chair calls upon the senator from the 39th to introduce our special guest today.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I have the honor of bringing before you this morning Ushers New Look Academy, which is a group of high school students that are preparing for their post-secondary education and preparing for the world. One of the primary missions of high school in this modern time is to prepare its students for college and career. Preparing students to compete in a global information-based economy is the impetus behind this mission. Students must be equipped with 21st century skills in order to have a chance to succeed, and that is exactly what the New Look Foundation is doing here, not just in Atlanta and in Georgia, but across the country. And this is the 6th year that they've been a part of coming down to the Capitol and participating in mock legislation and being engaged in the legislative process. And this is my 3rd time being able to have them here. I kind of inherited this program from our previous Lieutenant Governor, Casey Cagle, and all of you know Miss Irene Munn, who's a constituent of mine. And when Irene tells you to pick up something and take it on, you make it happen. And I've been working with her to make sure that this program has been a success. And it is my honor to present to you this morning Ms. Camera Cobb, who's the Usher New Look Event Director and the National Program Coordinator.
Good morning. As Senator Williams said, my name is Camera Cobb, National Program Coordinator for Ushers New Look, and we are so thrilled to be here today for our 6th UNL Day at the Capitol. And I would like to give a special thank you to Lieutenant Governor Duncan and Senator Williams for hosting us today. Because of you all, our bright students get the opportunity to engage firsthand with the legislative process and be exposed to careers in this field. And I would also like to take the time now to recognize the rest of our group who is up here in the balcony. If you guys could just stand really quick, briefly, and be recognized. We are proud to share that across our 3 core programs, we've serviced more than 50,000 youth across the world, and we serve over 600 students right here in the state of Georgia every year. And today during our visit, our students will will debate the House Bill 169 of implementing financial education for K through 12 students in Georgia. If you would like to learn more information about the work that we do, just talk to one of our team members and we will be happy to share more information. Again, we thank you for the opportunity to expose our youth to the legislative process of our great state of Georgia. Thank you.
We have some additional special guests with us today that we'd like to recognize. Mr. Secretary, please read the resolution.
Senate Resolution 695 by Senator Martin of the 9th and others, a resolution recognizing October 5th through 9th, 2020 as Georgia Pre-K Week at the state capitol and for other purposes. Whereas Georgia's pre-K program was started by Governor Zell Miller in 1992 as a pilot program serving 750 students and now provides quality early education experiences to more than half of the state's 4-year-old children. And whereas Georgia's pre-K program has helped prepare approximately 1.6 million of Georgia's children for success in kindergarten and beyond since it began. And whereas the children in Georgia's pre-K show significant gains across all learning domains regardless of gender and income differences. Finding from the longitudinal study on Georgia's pre-K conducted by the Frank Porter Graham Child Development Institute showed that these gains were sustained through the end of first grade. Now therefore be it resolved by the Senate that the members of this body recognize October 5th through 9th, 2020 as Georgia Pre-K Week at the state capitol. Thank the hundreds of programs, teachers, aides, and staff who have built a nationally recognized pre-kindergarten program and other high-quality early education programs, and encourage parents, educators, community members, and business leaders to participate in Georgia's Pre-K Week and to support high-quality, accessible, and affordable early education for all children in the great state of Georgia. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Is there objection to adoption of the resolution? The chair hears none, and the resolution is adopted. I'd like to call upon the senator from the 9th to introduce our special guest today.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, colleagues. I'm honored to be able to present the Georgia Pre-K Week and let you know when that's going to be. It's from October 5th to October 9th, 2020. It will take place that week, as I just said. This week celebrates Georgia's pre-K program, which is a nationally recognized, and it serves approximately 1.6 million. It has served approximately 1.6 million of Georgia's children since it began. This year, the official pre-K book is going to be Where the Wild Things Are. So what a better place to introduce this week than in the Georgia Senate. It's probably better over in the House, but it's very, very good to do it here. It's an excellent week. I always enjoy it. And I hope each one of you will do this. In attendance today is Amy Jacobs, who's the commissioner of Bright from the Start. We have Erica Finner-Sitkoff, who is the executive director of Voices for Georgia's Children. We have the Junior League of Atlanta president, Andrea Smith. And then we also have a special guest here today, the Pre-K Teachers of the Year. The first is Heather Williams, who is at Central Georgia Technical College's Larry O'Neill Child Development Center, and that's in Warner Robins, Georgia. And Jonathan Hines, who is teaching at Barack H. Obama Elementary Magnet School of Technology in Atlanta, Georgia. So, as you know, pre-K is the brainchild of Zell Miller, and it has grown to be an amazing program. Georgia is one of only 9 states that actually, and the District of Columbia, that serves more than half of its state's 4-year-old children in a pre-K program, which is absolutely great. Now, I heard a disturbing thing. Only 4 out of 5 legislators participate in this program, Georgia Pre-K Week. That means if my math is correct, which is probably not, at least 11 of us did not participate this year. And if you didn't participate, shame on you. It's the best thing that we get to do all year round. It's so much fun, and I've already committed to doing more than one pre-K. So speaking today is going to be Amy Jacobs, Commissioner of Right from the Start.
Thank you very much, and thank you all for your continued commitment to Georgia's pre-K program. We have served 1.6 million four-year-olds, and I can tell you that those four-year-olds leave Georgia pre-K and they are ready for kindergarten and beyond. I invite you to join us for Georgia Pre-K Week and experience it for yourself. There's nothing like being in that classroom with 22 four-year-olds and two amazing teachers, one teacher and one assistant teacher. There's nothing like seeing it for yourself, which is why we partner with Voices and Junior League of Atlanta every year and other partners to make this happen. So we invite you to do that. I will tell you, and I want to reiterate, one reason that Georgia Pre-K is so successful are the teachers, which is why we thought it was important today for you to meet our two pre-K teachers of the year, Heather Williams from Central Georgia Technical College and Jonathan Hines from Barack H. Obama in DeKalb County. They are the best of the best. Thank you for having us, and we look forward to seeing you in October.
I'd like to call the Senate back to order. We're having a couple of technical difficulties that we're working through, but we have additional special guests that we're going to introduce from the well. Mr. Secretary, please read the resolution.
Senate Resolution 556 by Senator Wilkinson of the 50th and others, a resolution congratulating and commending Banks County High School's Lady Leopards for securing the Class 2A state title and for other purposes. Whereas the Lady Leopards, Banks County High School's girls softball team, reigned victorious on October 28, 2019 against Bremen High School, securing the Class 2A state title. And whereas it is abundantly fitting and proper that the outstanding accomplishments of this extraordinary team be appropriately recognized. Now therefore be it resolved by the Senate that Banks County High School's Lady Leopards are congratulated on winning the Class 2A state title, commended for their hard work, determination, and effort, and extend best wishes for continued growth and success. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Is there objection to adoption of the resolution? The chair hears none, and the resolution is adopted. I'd like to call on our good friend to introduce our special guest of the day.
I noticed that Mike started working as soon as I came down here, so I'm glad I could help the electrician out. We're glad to have the representatives of the Banks County Leopards softball team here today, the state champions. I'm not going to take a lot of time because they've got to get back to the house. That's one reason I came down here, but I would like to point out that they played in the state finals. Banks County did one other time in 1983, and in 1983, I was their bus driver. And they made it to the finals and lost to Broxton from Coffee County by 1 run in the last 2 games. So I'm glad these girls finally won the whole thing, and it's really an honor for me to have them with me today. I would like for the Senate to recognize, I know we've got the rest of the squad sitting up there in the gallery, so I'd like for all, are y'all the Leopards or the Leoparettes? Y'all, I want the Leopards to stand up and let us give you a hand. Stand up now. Hey, y'all are standing. That's a joke they always use on me. They say, stand up, oh, you are standing. But it's good to have you here today. We're going to let your coach make a few remarks. I especially want to recognize them here in the Senate just to let you know that they're state champions in other districts besides the 53rd district. We do have Madison Cronick with us. Madison, raise your hand. We have Tybee Denton. We have their coach, Kilby Cronick. So Coach Cronick, we're going to come and let you make some comments. And also, they have their own security guy here today that I'd like to recognize, standing by the door, the High Sheriff of Banks County, a good friend of mine, Carlton Speed. Sheriff Speed, we're glad to have. Let's give Sheriff Speed a hand.
I'd like to say thank you to the Senate. Thank you, Senator Wilkinson, for having us out here today. On behalf of our players, coaches, and our community, it's a great honor to be here today, stand before you, to be recognized as the state champions of the state of Georgia. Our team went 32-3 on the season. In the playoffs, we managed to outscore our opponents 97-1, being undefeated to hold up the Class AA state championship. So thank you very much for having us here today. Thank you again to our players, community, and our Board of Education officials. Thank you all, ladies. I love you very much for giving me the opportunity to stand here before these senators today, and all of you. Thank you.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 35th from the well to introduce some special guests today.
Come stand with me. Thank you, Mr. President. I'm so excited this morning because today I have an opportunity to not just talk about Black History Month, but to introduce a school that is clearly #1 in Black history in Atlanta. And that's Morris Brown College. It's Morris Brown College Day. And I am a proud alumni. Morris Brown College was founded on Christian principles in 1881 by the African Methodist Episcopal Church and is chartered by the state of Georgia as a private co-educational liberal arts college engaged in teaching, research, and public service in the arts, humanities, social and natural sciences, and professional programs. The mission of MBC is to provide educational opportunities in a positive and nurturing environment that will enable all its students to become fully functional persons in our global society. The college prepares graduates to live meaningful and rewarding lives, thereby enabling them to make social, constructive, and culturally relevant contributions to society. Morris Brown College, in its commitment to academic excellence, provides experiences that foster and enhance intellectual, personal, and interpersonal development for students who have demonstrated the potential to compete in a challenging undergraduate liberal arts program of study. And I know personally because I am a proud alumni. And, and I have with me Dr. Kevin James, and we're going to find out if we are related. But he is our new president of Morris Brown College. Dr. Also, we have Reverend Chuck Barlow, and he is with our alumni, and his beautiful wife, who is also a trustee member, is in the gallery. And also, we have Walean White Smith, who is the chairperson of Women for Morris Brown, which is a strong group of women all over the country of alumni from Morris Brown College. And we have Devon McKenzie, who is on the staff of Morris Brown. And so if you want to be a student at Morris Brown, you have to see her and kiss up to her. I was just kidding. So I'm proud today to have all these wonderful people standing here. But we have people in the audience, so please stand, everyone who is here from Morris Brown College and from the AME Church. And then there are others over in the house with Representative, the representative who graduated. It's 3 or 4 that graduated from Morris Brown College. So we thank you for being here today. We welcome you, and everyone, please give them a warm welcome.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
We have additional special guests with us today. We've got our computer system back up and operational. Mr. Secretary, will you please read the resolution?
Senate Resolution 625 by Senator Brass of the 28th and others, a resolution recognizing February 5th, 2020 as State Action Day for the National Multiple Sclerosis Society and for other purposes. Whereas the National Multiple Sclerosis Society remains tirelessly committed to a world free of multiple sclerosis, heightens public knowledge about and insight of the disease, and helps individuals living with MS live their best lives. And whereas stopping MS in its tracks, restoring what has been lost, and ending MS forever is the mission of the National Multiple Sclerosis Society, and one that all Americans and Georgians should support. Now therefore be it resolved by the Senate that the members of this body recognize February 5th, 2020 as State Action Day for the National Multiple Sclerosis Society, and March 8th through 14th, 2020 as Multiple Sclerosis Awareness Week in the United States, support finding the causes and cure for MS, and express their appreciation for the dedication of the National Multiple Sclerosis Society. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Is there objection to adoption of the resolution? The chair hears none, and the resolution is adopted. I'd like to call upon the senator from the 28th to introduce our special guest today.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of this body, I want to just recognize today is State Action Day for the National Multiple Sclerosis Society. We have members of this society and activists with us today. We have some up in the balcony, if y'all could wave. You'll notice around the Capitol today wearing orange. So please stop them and ask them what's their story. Get them to tell their story, because it's very powerful. The strength that lives within each and one of these members of this community. So up on stage with me, I'm going to be brief, but I've got our president of the Georgia MS Society, Roy Rangel. I've got our senior manager of advocacy, Heather Breeden. I've got a trustee and the volunteer of the year, Christine Werner. And I have an activist, Andrea Bannicky. And then I have another activist, and this activist is really my connection to MS and my connection to multiple sclerosis, and seeing how it can change the path of a family, how it can change the path of those around it. And that's my mother, Linda Brass. She was diagnosed in 1998. And just, she's been a strength to me and really all that live around her. And each one of these individuals up here and in that balcony, we've got Julia Murphy over there on the side. Each one of them is a source of strength, and they can be a strength to you. So I just encourage y'all to listen to their stories, and let's do what we can to help MS. And the society itself has committed $38.7 million to 123 new research projects that have led to many breakthroughs in the treatment of MS. So again, thank you, activists. Thank you, everyone up on this stage, for all you do for MS. Thank you, Mr. President.
Dr. Brass? There's nobody that would trust him with a PhD. His mother said, he's a real doctor. All right, this time we're going to move on to points of personal privilege, and I'd like to take a personal point of privilege here. And if I seem a little bit nervous today, I've got my in-laws here with me today. So I'd like to take a minute to recognize Lynn and Gary Mize, my in-laws that are here. First time they've been on the Senate floor, they probably didn't think this was coming when I walked in the door when I was 17 years old. At this time, the chair would like to recognize the senator from the 20th for a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am excited to be able to recognize today an outstanding group of young people that are with us here in the gallery. These are our future leaders for Georgia. We've got the members of the Perry Youth Leadership, Perry Area Chamber of Commerce Youth Leadership Group, and the Robbins Regional Chamber Youth Leadership Group joining us today. Would you all please join me in giving them a warm Senate welcome, and if the members of those classes would please stand.
Thank you, Senator. The chair recognizes the senator from the 48th for a point of personal privilege. Senator from the 48th.
Thank you, Mr. President. The right to vote is one of our most important rights and obligations as Americans. 2 weeks ago, our cousins in the Virginia State Senate passed a bill allowing, for the very first time in that state, citizens to vote by mail without needing to provide an excuse. Here in our great state, we've had no excuse absentee balloting on the books for almost 15 years, and our counties man in-person early vote sites in the days before Election Day. These tools, however, are only as good as the way we use them, and that is where we are having difficulty. When early vote sites are run to a bare minimum and valid mail ballots are tossed out, it's plain to see we're not taking advantage of the opportunities we have to allow as many folks to vote as possible. And I think we should all be able to agree that as a laudable goal, we all should be able to vote. It is a fundamental value of our democracy. I hope to work with each of you in this chamber and others with whom we can partner to further encourage more participation in the right to vote, and also to make it something that people can accomplish without obstruction or difficulty, as long as they are eligible to vote. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the wheel.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the senator from the 37th for a point of personal privilege.
Good morning, members of the Senate, Mr. President. It's my pleasure today to recognize February the 3rd through the 7th as National School Counseling Week, and we're pleased to welcome over 100 school counselors to the state capitol today for the Georgia State Counselors Association's Day on the Hill. Over 4,000 school counselors work in public and private schools around the state, providing a continuum of care for the academic, career development, and social and emotional needs of Georgia's K-12 students. School counselors are highly trained professionals that work in collaboration with the school staff, parents, and community to maximize the educational and career opportunities for all students. School counseling is particularly strong in Georgia. We have the second highest number of RAMP designated school counseling programs in the country, a designation awarded by the American School Counselor Association for exemplary school counseling programs. Georgia is also the only state in the country that has 4 National School Counselors of the Year. That's the national school counselors. 2 are from Gwinnett County and 2 are from Cobb. And they include Miss Julie Hartline from 2009 from Cobb County, Nicole Weber in 2011 from Cobb County, Robin Zorn in 2014 from Gwinnett County, and Laura Ross from 2020 in Gwinnett County. This year's honoree, Laura Ross of Gwinnett County, is in attendance today, along with leaders and members of the Georgia School Counselors Association. Laurie, wherever you are, I wish you would stand and identify yourself, and let's welcome her. She's up in the balcony. If it's in order, I would ask, I think Senator Martin has asked to also address her as well.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 9th for an additional point of personal privilege.
Yeah, I do. I'm so thankful. Thank you, Senator from the 37th. Laura, congratulations. Thanks for all you do. Thanks for your investment in the students at Five Forks Middle School. I'm proud of you, proud to meet you today, and look forward to having a picture here in a few minutes. And go Broncos. All right, I also want to today acknowledge that today is Advanced Placement Day at the state capitol. AP exams allow for students to earn college credit in high school. As you know, if they earn a 3 or higher, they can earn credits in high school for their college, moving forward in their college career. In Georgia, 84,207 public high school students took AP exams. They took a total of 151,728 AP exams, and I wrote down how many of them got credit, but I forgot to put it on here, but it was a lot. It was a lot. So just as you see the folks here from AP who are participating, please congratulate them and thank them for what they're doing. I also rise to honor an exceptional woman in Gwinnett County. Yesterday, Gwinnett County opened the newly renovated Gwinnett County Voter Registration and Elections Office. It was named in honor of the truly great Beauty Baldwin. Miss Baldwin is a pillar in Gwinnett County, and she resides in Tequila, Georgia. She was the first African American and first woman named as school superintendent in 1984 when she became school superintendent in Beaufort City Schools. She has since served on the Board of Elections in Gwinnett County for the past 23 years, where she has always worked together to help create free and fair elections in Gwinnett County. So I want to offer my congratulations to my good friend Beauty Baldwin on this well-deserved honor. She is an example for us all to follow, and I am very proud to call her friend. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the well.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 40th for a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the Senate. Last spring, the governor vetoed school recess. And so many of our kids have no break all day except for maybe a 20-minute lunch. But what most people don't know is that a lot of these same kids can't take a play break even after school. That's because they have so much homework, and they don't have much time for anything else before bedtime. And this is becoming commonplace for kindergartners, 5- and 6-year-olds. Yet the research consistently shows that the younger the child, the less effective the homework. And Georgia ranked 30th in the United States for education. So I would argue that we aren't getting much academic progress in return for overworking our children. And there may be a cost, too. The American Academy of Pediatrics believes, and I quote, "Play is not frivolous. It enhances brain structure and promotes executive function." So pretending to be Spider-Man for an afternoon or walking the family's dog actually is good for our children, physically, intellectually, and emotionally. And we also know that increased rates of childhood obesity in our state are linked to lack of physical activity. But with all this homework and class time, when does a child have the chance to let their bodies and imaginations run wild? Today, I'm filing a bill called the After School Recess Act. This bill bans graded homework from kindergarten to 2nd grade. Teachers can still assign homework, but they won't be allowed to assign it a grade, nor punish or shame a child for not doing the work. Because it's up to us to preserve this formative part of childhood for them. I was here when our legislature started discussing school recess 20 years ago, just before my firstborn was in kindergarten. He didn't get recess. And last year, we agreed together that recess should be reinstated for all Georgia kids, and we passed a bill, and we were vetoed. Meanwhile, our kids can't catch a break in Georgia. Now, my teachers taught me to find solutions, and here's one that I hope we can all get behind. If we can't guarantee school recess during the day, at least we can let our 6, 7, and 8-year-olds play when their work is done. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the well.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 28th for a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to welcome the Noonan Youth Council who's here today to learn about government, and appreciate them really partaking in this thing we do called government. So they're on their way over from the house, but if they come in the balcony, if y'all please let them know that I did recognize them. Thank you.
I see what you did there, Senator. Chair recognizes the senator from the 36th for a point of personal privilege. Senator from the 36th. Point of personal privilege. So do you want me to take up that first and then the consent calendar?
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I've come to you today to flag the United Campus Worker priorities for this session. What is United Campus Workers? United Campus Workers of Georgia is a union of staff, faculty, graduate, and undergraduate employees with over 550 members across 11 public higher education campuses. They are young, but they are growing. They have a compelling story. I urge you to make yourself available at the ropes in the hall to speak with people who come from your district and from schools in your district. These are graduate students who are working in our university system for poverty wages and paying enormous fees for the privilege of being a grad student at one of our university system campuses. The truth of the matter is that these highly motivated, high skills, people who are seeking to better themselves and contribute back to students in our state by earning advanced degrees are asked to endure really deplorable wage and working conditions. It's shocking when you really take a close look. The fact of the matter is 78% of all the doctoral students in our university system are enrolled at Georgia Tech and at UGA. And UGA has the 4th highest fees for grad students, and Tech has the 5th highest fees for grad students when compared to 70 large research institutions across the country. On average, a grad assistant pays 12 to 17% of their salary back to the university in order to work. Now, that's even hard to wrap your mind around, that they are charged all these fees and are told they have a job, but yet the fees are backed out of their pay till their earnings are really deplorable. These people want to contribute, they want to better themselves, they want to be part of the brain trust of Georgia. It's vital that we support and have welcome open arms for people with this talent and this drive and this motivation, and not nickel and dime them to make it. They go up to UVA at University of Virginia, Charlottesville, and they pay no fees. They pay no fees. That university doesn't charge these fees that we're doing down here, and it's tied to the fact that our higher education funding has declined. I want to just keep an open mind, listen to the case that's being made. It's compelling. And it's about fairness, and it's about being a state that encourages postgraduate study and higher degrees, masters and doctorates, and not creates barriers. Today at Liberty Plaza at noon, you'll have an opportunity to go by, meet constituents, meet people that are teaching, living in your communities and teaching at these universities as grad students, and you can hear it firsthand. That's at noon over at Liberty Plaza today. The United Campus Workers. They make a compelling statement, and it would be a win-win to change the conditions under which they work. Thank you.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 16th for a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, we often state when we are working on a piece of legislation that it's for the children. And as a father of 6, those words resonate with me. They're not merely a catchphrase or a political club to beat the opposition in a cynical way. I would do anything for my children, and I know that many fathers and mothers in this chamber would do the same. I cannot imagine the pain and the struggle it must place when a mother is forced by circumstances to give up her child for adoption. Therefore, it is the duty of this body to fight not only for the children, but also for the mothers. No mother should ever be forced to place her child with an agency that does not adhere to her beliefs and values. Because of this, I have filed legislation to protect faith-based adoption centers in our state. These agencies, many of them are nonprofits, are deeply committed to helping find safe and loving homes for children under their care. The legislation will ensure that faith-based agencies in this state not required to advocate with their First Amendment rights. These agencies will continue to operate according to the beliefs of their written policy statements. This legislation will protect the freedom of choice for mothers in placing their children with agencies that are in line with their culture and values. It will also protect the freedom of expression for the agencies. And most importantly, it will help ensure that many children as possible find a safe and loving home. Thank you, Mr. President, and I yield the well.
All right, we're going to move on here. Mr. Secretary, will you please read the caption to the resolution, please?
Senate Resolution number 713 by Senator Dugan of the 30th and others, a resolution relative to meetings and adjournments of the General Assembly and for other purposes.
I'm going to assign that to rules. And I'd like everybody to pay special attention here. We've got an adjournment resolution that's about ready to be read by the Secretary. Please proceed.
Senate Resolution number 712 by Senator Dugan of the 30th and others, a resolution relative to the meetings and adjournments of the General Assembly and for other purposes.
Chair recognizes the Majority Leader to speak to the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is one of those pieces of legislation that we've talked at great length about throughout the body on both sides of the aisle here. We understand there's a tight budget situation across the state this year, and the House needed a little bit more time to review the information that they're receiving from the state agencies, because we get one chance to get this right. So they came to us and asked if we could give them a little bit more time next week so they could go through in great detail. We agreed with some stipulations in it, and we have taken this calendar out to crossover day, or the day after crossover day. So, subject to your questions, which I think I've answered 5,000 of them in the last 24 hours. If there are none, I yield the well.
You have no questions. Is there objection to adoption of the resolution? The chair hears none, and the resolution is adopted. All right, you've now got a consent calendar of privileged resolutions before you. For what purpose does the Majority Leader rise?
Mr. President, I move that the Senate immediately transmit Senate Resolution 712 to the House.
Is there objection? The chair hears none, and it's immediately transmitted to the House. All right, now you've got a consent calendar of privileged resolutions before you. Does any senator wish to remove a resolution from the consent calendar? Chair sees none. Is there objection to adoption of the resolution of the consent calendar? Chair hears none, and the resolutions on the consent calendar are adopted. Are there any motions to withdraw and commit? Chair sees none. Local calendar, you good? All right, now you've got a consent calendar of local bills before you. Mr. Secretary, are there any objections filed to any bills on the local consent calendar?
Mr. President, there are no objections filed.
Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the Committee on State and Local Government Operations, which is favorable to the passage of the bills on the local consent calendar? The chair hears none, and the report of the committee is agreed to. The question is now on the passage of the bills on the local consent calendar. All those in favor will vote yea, opposed nay. The Secretary will unlock the machine. right, so we're going to work through the whole rules calendar, and then we're going to go to day 2. On the passage of the resolutions, the yeas are 48, the nays are 0. The bills on the local consent calendar, having received the requisite constitutional majority, are therefore passed. All right, we're going to move on to the rules calendar. Mr. Secretary, please read the caption to Senate Bill 289.
Senate Bill number 289, a bill to be titled an act to amend Chapter 5 of Title 48 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated, relating to ad valorem taxation of property, so as to remove the requirement that mobile homes procure permits and procedure and display decals, to repeal Code Section 485492, relating to issuance of mobile home location permits and issuance and display of decals, and for other purposes. Mr. President, on January 30th, 2020, the Senate Committee on Finance recommends that this bill do pass, respectfully submitted by Senator Huffstetler, Chair. That completes order, Mr. President.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 53rd to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, members of the wonderful Senate. It doesn't happen often, but today I bring to you a bill that you've been waiting for. A bill that you can say that I've saved tax dollars for people in certain counties. This bill was brought to me by the Walker County Tax Assessor's Office, so it will help to save tax dollars. This is all about the decal or the sticker on what would be called a manufactured home. Some people in Dahlonega call them mobile homes. Some people in South Georgia may call them trailers. But we're talking about the same thing. Now, when these vehicles or these homes are moved, the wheels are put on and we refer to them as mobile homes at that point. All this bill does is allow the tax assessor's office or tax commissioners where they want to issue the decal or not. That's it. The technology is there that they can look on the screen for different individuals or different property locations to find out what taxes have been paid, including the sticker for the manufactured home, or some people refer to it as a mobile home, or some people refer to it as trailer. I just want to make sure you are aware of what we're talking about. But as you can imagine, if you have a decal on a manufactured home, or some would call it a mobile home, or some would call it a trailer, you have to pay an individual to go and make sure those decals are placed in the proper position so they can see it from the road. Now that still can happen. If you're a county without the technology needed for this, you can still issue stickers and you can still make sure they're placed on the manufactured home, or some people would call it a mobile home, or some people would call it a trailer. So you know what I'm talking about. All this does is save tax dollars money. They still have the option. They can put it on if they want to. Or they can choose not to, which saves the counties the price of the decal, which is just part of the taxes that they pay. Or it also would save for having an individual to drive the county roads to make sure that decal is placed in a proper position on the manufactured homes, or some people would call it a mobile home, or some people call it a trailer, like maybe in Butts County. So you know what I'm referring to here. Now, I'll be glad to answer any questions on this mighty important bill that saves tax dollars in the counties.
Senator, you have no questions.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate your positive vote on this wonderful bill.
Any other senator wish to speak for or against the measure? The chair sees none. All right, is there objection or agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? The chair hears none, and the main question is ordered. The question is on the passage of the bill. All those in favor will vote yea. Opposed, nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 50, the nays are 0, and this bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Mr. Secretary, please read the caption of Senate Bill 26.
Senate Bill number 26, a bill to be titled An Act to Amend Article 5 of Chapter 2 of Title 47 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated, relating to service creditable towards retirement benefits under the Employees Retirement System of Georgia, so as to provide for creditable service in the Employees Retirement System of Georgia for prior service as a member of the Georgia Defined Contribution Plan, provide for the application and payment of the full actuarial cost, and an actuarial report has been attached. Mr. President, on January 29, 2020, the Senate Committee on Retirement recommends that this bill do pass, respectively submitted by Senator Black, Chair. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 3rd to speak to Senate Bill 26.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of this great Senate. I bring before you Senate Bill 26. We passed this bill out 2 years ago, but it failed to make it out of the House before the end of the session. And essentially what this bill does is allow a member of the a person who is a member of the Georgia Defined Benefit Contribution Plan, who is now employed by the state and a member of the retirement system, to buy back his time under that old plan so that he can participate and buy that credit back. He has to pay the full actuarial value of that, and so it will not cost the state any money. The bill also gives the member the option of financing those costs up to a period of 10 years. So I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 26th for a question.
Does the gentleman yield?
Yes, sir.
So you're saying that they buy back, do they buy back at the current rate? Because right now we are putting money in these defined pension plans.
Yes, they have to, it's analyzed, and they have to pay the full cost of it to buy it back. Yes.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 48th for a question.
Does the gentleman yield?
Yes.
So help me understand, did they not have an opportunity when they first joined to,
No.
buy this time? Or
No.
how
No.
was this lost time?
They were under a different plan. They were under the Defined Contribution Plan. Those funds actually move into the retirement system plan, and then they have to pay, in addition to that amount, any additional amounts that are necessary to cover their future benefits under the current retirement system.
So, does the gentleman
Yes.
further yield? So
Yes.
does this cost the Georgia taxpayers
No,
any money?
it does not. It does not. The analysis has been run. They have to look at what it's going to cost the taxpayers, and that is the amount of money that the employee would have to pay into the system, in addition to the monies in their old retirement system that are moved into the state plan.
Do you further yield?
Yes.
So just so I'm clear, no fiscal impact.
No fiscal impact.
Thank you.
Senator, you have no more questions.
Mr. President, I'll yield the well.
Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the measure? Chair sees none. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none, and the report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? The chair hears none, and the main question is ordered. The questions on the passage of the bill. All those in favor of the bill will vote yea. Opposed, nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 51, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Ms. Secretary, please read the caption of Senate Bill 47.
Senate Bill number 47, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Article 5 of Chapter 2 of Title 47 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated, relating to service credible towards retirement benefits, so as to provide for creditable service for certain military service, to provide for application and payment, and for other purposes. An actuarial report has been attached. Mr. President, on January 29th, 2020, the Senate Committee on Retirement recommends that this bill do pass, respectfully submitted by Senator Black, Chair. That can be sorted, Mr. President.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 8th to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill provides a benefit for service veterans, allows them to buy up to 5 years of credible service in the military and any of our retirement systems. It also has the provision that they can pay in this. They've got to buy it at full actuarial cost, and they can pay this over a period of years from a payroll deduction. This is very important to a number of our departments that really prefer getting veteran employees. Veterans make good state employees because they got the maturity, they got that military discipline, and they just fit in a job with the state of Georgia. And this will enhance a number of our departments because this will give a real strong recruiting tool to get these veterans on the state payroll. Any questions? I'll entertain them. No questions, I ask for your favor.
You have no questions. Thank you. Chair recognizes the senator from the 33rd to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. President, fellow senators, colleagues, friends, and y'all. I just want to encourage you to support this bill from the senator from the 8th. Him and I, we've been working together on this bill for a long time together in a bipartisan manner, and it means a lot to the veterans. Being a veteran myself, I know. So I just want to encourage you to support this bill, and I yield the well. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the bill? Senator from the 8th want to close debate? He waives. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none, and the report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? The chair hears none, and the main question is ordered. The question is on the passage of the bill. All those in favor of the bill will vote yea. Opposed, nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 51, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Mr. Secretary, please read the caption to Senate Bill 262.
Senate Bill number 262, a bill to be titled an act to amend Chapter 2 of Title 47 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated, relating to the employees' retirement system of Georgia, so as to provide that if a beneficiary who elected option 2 upon retirement is predeceased by the contingent beneficiary, such beneficiary shall be eligible to make a new retirement election or nominate another person to become the contingent beneficiary and for other purposes. An actuarial report has been attached. Mr. President, on January 29th, 2020, the Senate Committee on Retirement recommends that this bill do pass by substitute, respectfully submitted by Senator Black, Chair. The Senate Committee on Retirement offers the following substitute to Senate Bill 262, a bill to be titled an act to amend Chapter 2, Title 47 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated, relating to the employees' retirement system of Georgia, so as to revise certain provisions related to optional retirement allowances and for other purposes. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 15th to speak to Senate Bill 262.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to ask your support for Senate Bill 262. This bill, the genesis of this bill, came about because there was an elderly lady who had worked several years, like 30 years, for the health department there in Muskogee County. She retired, and she had named her beneficiary. That beneficiary died, and she had tried in vain over the years to get it passed on to her second beneficiary and could not get it done. And I worked with the senator from the 29th on this bill, trying to alleviate her problem, but could not get it done. So we came up with this alternative for her. Moving forward, it could be done, but unfortunately, it does not affect that lady. But we worked hard trying to get it solved, and we came up with this plan with the blessings of the retirement system, and prayerfully you'll support this bill so we can make sure that this does not happen to anybody else in this circumstance. If there are no questions, Mr. President, I yield the well.
You have no questions.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the measure? Chair sees none. The question is on the adoption of the committee substitute. Is there objection to adoption of the committee substitute? Chair hears none, and the committee substitute is adopted. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none, and the report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question now being ordered? Chair hears none, and the main question is ordered. Questions on the passage of the bill by substitute. All those in favor of the bill will vote yea. Opposed, nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 52, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed by substitute. All right, we're going to move on now. It's now time to consider confirmation of the appointments to the Judicial Qualifications Commission. The Secretary will read the names for confirmation submitted by the Governor, the Speaker of the House, and the Supreme Court.
Mr. President, the following appointments to the Judicial Qualifications Commission have been submitted to the Senate for confirmation. The Honorable Ferda M. Colvin, appointed to the investigative panel by the Supreme Court of Georgia on July 1st, 2019. The Honorable Barr, appointed to the investigative panel by the Governor on July 1st, 2019. Mr. Richard Hyde, appointed from the investigative panel to the hearing panel by the Governor on January 14th, 2020. Mr. Dane Kirby, appointed to the investigative panel to fill the vacancy created by the appointment of Richard Hyde to the hearing panel, appointed by the Speaker of the House of Representatives on January 14th, 2020. Copies of the letters requesting confirmation of these appointments have been placed on the desk. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Assignments has recommended these appointments be confirmed as submitted. Respectfully submitted by the Honorable Jeff Duncan, Chair. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Chair recognizes the Majority Leader for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask for unanimous consent that one roll call suffice to confirm all appointments unless a senator designates that an appointee be removed from the list and voted on individually.
For what purpose does the senator from the 29th rise?
Mr. President, I humbly request that a separate vote be required on the confirmation of Mr. Bob Barr.
The senator has asked for a separate roll call vote on the Honorable Bob Barr. He has that right, and we will vote separately on Mr. Barr. Are there any other senators who wish to vote separately on any of the other three appointments? Hearing none, the majority leader's request that one roll call vote suffice to confirm Ms. Colvin, Mr. Hyde, and Mr. Kirby is granted. We will now proceed to consider the confirmation of Ms. Colvin, Mr. Hyde, Mr. Kirby. I recognize the majority leader for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to confirm the appointment of Honorable Verda M. Colvin, Mr. Richard Hyde, and Mr. Dane Kirby to the Judicial Qualifications Commission.
Does the majority leader want to speak to his motion?
No, Mr. President.
Does any other senators wish to speak on the motion? All right, the question is on the confirmation of the following appointments to the Judicial Qualifications Commission. The Honorable Verda M. Colvin, appointed by the Supreme Court. Mr. Richard Hyde, appointed by the Governor. And Mr. Dane Kirby, appointed by the Speaker. All those in favor of the confirmation will vote yea. Opposed, nay. The Secretary will unlock the machine. On the confirmation of the appointments to the Judicial Qualifications Commission, the yeas are 50, the nays are 2, and the Honorable Verda M. Colvin, Mr. Richard Hyde, and Mr. Dane Kirby are confirmed. It is now in order to consider the appointments of Mr. Barr. I recognize the majority leader for a motion.
Mr. President, I move to confirm the appointment of Bob Barr to the Judicial Qualifications Commission.
Would the majority leader like to speak to the motion?
No, Mr. President.
He waves. Does any other senator wish to speak on the motion? The chair recognizes the senator from the 29th to speak on the motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. Fellow senators, I know each and every day we carry a heavy weight on our shoulders when we come into this room to do the business for the citizens of Georgia. And I can't imagine the weight that rests on our governor's shoulders when he is required to appoint hundreds and hundreds of men and women to also serve the citizens of Georgia. I understand that there's an important vetting process that has to be carried out. And I understand once that vetting is done, that there's always going to be one or two individuals that may raise some concern. But one thing that's been pointed out many times, the constitutional requirement of the Georgia State Senate to confirm those individuals sent over to us by the governor cannot be shirked. We must be willing to stand in the gap and do the job that we're elected to do. And in relation to this individual being recommended to serve on the Judicial Qualification Commission, I'm afraid in the vetting one thing was left out. And what was left out was something that started on August 19th, 1989, when Savannah police officer Mark Allen McPhail was attempting to protect the life of a homeless individual, and he was shot. After being shot and laying on the ground outside of a Greyhound bus station in Savannah, Georgia, the individual that shot Officer McPhail walked over, stood over the 27-year-old father of two, Army veteran from Fort Benning, Georgia, and executed him as he laid on the ground. After the individual was captured and convicted by a minority jury in Chatham County, he went to death row here in Georgia. Several years after that, the judicial system here in Georgia was the subject of an attempted hijacking by groups throughout the world who thinks that anybody in Georgia on death row that does not look like me or has not been adjudicated, that law enforcement in Georgia has stacked the deck against them. And that is not the case. I read enough trial transcripts to make me taller than the senator from the 54th. And I have no doubt in my heart and no doubt in my mind that the individual that went to death row for executing Officer Mark Allen McPhail Sr. was in fact the individual who did the crime. And during the hijacking or the attempted hijacking of the criminal justice system here in Georgia, several individuals came out for various reasons. Some came out because I believe in their heart they felt that they needed to fight because they opposed the death penalty. Some came out not knowing the facts, and some came out to draw attention to themselves. During this process, I traveled around the state with the mother of Officer Mark Allen McPhail Sr. I went to court hearings, federal court, state court, Superior Court, and supported the family and continued to absorb the facts. During this process, this individual on the confirmation list went to death row, visited the convicted, came out wearing a t-shirt claiming that he was that person. And while I will never stand in the way, and I think both sides of the aisle understand, I will never stand in the way of free speech, whether I agree with it or not, I will always stand up for justice and truth. And I will never, ever sacrifice that justice and truth for a public relations ploy or to draw attention to me. And for that reason, I stand opposed as a senator who is constitutionally required to confirm these individuals to this particular individual, especially serving in the capacity where he could have impact on the men and women that sit on the bench in the state of Georgia. And Mr. President, I yield the well.
Calling the majority leader to close debate on the motion. He waives. The question is on the confirmation of the Honorable Bob Barr to the Judicial Qualifications Commission. All those in favor of the confirmation will vote yea. Opposed, nay. The Secretary will unlock the machine. On the confirmation of the appointment of the Honorable Bob Barr, the Judicial Qualifications Commission, the yeas are 33, the nays are 15, and Mr. Barr is confirmed. Chair recognizes the majority leader for a motion.
Mr. President, I move that the Senate stand adjourned pursuant to SR 712 until 10 a.m. Tuesday, February 18th, 2020.
Mr. Secretary, please read the announcements.
Rules will meet upon adjournment in 450 CAP. Public Safety will meet in Mez 1 at 1 p.m. Urban Affairs will meet in 450 CAP at 1 p.m. Education and Youth is canceled. Economic Development and Tourism will meet in 125 CAP at 3 p.m. Health and Human Services will meet in 450 CAP at 3 p.m. Judiciary will meet in 307 CLOB at 4 p.m. And retirement has been canceled. That completes order, Mr. President.
Chair would like to recognize the senator from the 7th for a special announcement.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, it is tough to do things like this, especially in light of our former colleague. But on behalf of the 13th Senate District and our former colleague, our fallen colleague, Senator Kirk, I want to extend an invitation to all of you to the Cordell Crisp County Fish Fry that is tonight at the Georgia Railroad Depot at 5 o'clock. So with that, Mr. President, I will yield the will.
Thanks, sir. Any additional announcements? All right, the majority leader has moved that the Senate stand adjourned pursuant to Senate Resolution 712 until 10 a.m. Tuesday, February 18th, 2020. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. I think the ayes have it. The Senate stands adjourned.